You're listening to the Chorus One podcast, a show that covers decentralized networks and their impact on the evolution of automated and borderless economies. On this podcast, we invite pioneers and builders to discuss the decentralized protocols and projects they are working on. On this show today, we have Jack Zampolin, co-founder of Sommelier. Sommelier Network improves tooling for DeFi liquidity providers, aka LPs, on Ethereum. The first DeFi vertical that Sommelier is targeting is Uniswap V3 liquidity provision. Right now, the experience to swap assets on Uniswap is great, but the tools for liquidity providers to optimize their returns are lacking. Sommelier will be used as a one-stop shop for Ethereum LPs to maximize their returns through pooling of liquidity, informed optimisations, and structured products. We speak to Jack about how Sommelier democratises the LP experience, how they built the protocol, and what a user can expect before their upcoming mainnet launch in this podcast. So hello everyone, welcome back to the Chorus One podcast, and today a bit of an unusual one as Felix Luch is unable to join us, and so I'll be taking the podcast myself today, and I'm really excited to have Jack Zampolin from Sommelier on the show. Jack, how are you going, mate?
Great, Xavier, thanks a lot for having me on, and really appreciate it.
No worries at all. And yeah, really excited to have you on the show today. I mean, you're doing some really cool things at Sommelier and really perfect timing as well, I think, just before you start going live with a lot of things. But yeah, before maybe we dig too deep into anything, maybe you could just give a sort of brief rundown into what Sommelier is.
Totally. Sommelier is a protocol where we're building tooling for liquidity providers. Sommelier is a protocol where we're building tooling for liquidity providers. And we're starting with Unisoft V3. We believe that liquidity provision and this sort of idea of locking up funds for other uses is going to be a cornerstone of DeFi. And it's an experience that, the average user, you and me and our parents are going to need to be able to do. So we want to build tooling to democratize that and make that easy. And I think especially with the coming of Uniswap V3, what we're seeing is that liquidity provision is getting increasingly complex, and there's more and more monitoring necessity and other actions that users are going to have to take in order to be profitable with this activity. And we want to just make that as easy as possible. And we'll dig into kind of how we're doing that.
It's interesting to picture my parents using Sommelier and Uniswap V3. And maybe, you touched upon it just then. One of the good ways of using Sommelier could be Uniswap V3. Maybe, just in case our viewers aren't aware of what Uniswap V3 is or how it's changed, maybe, and why Sommelier is good for this new version. Touch upon that.
It's funny. We were actually building Sommelier originally for Uniswap V2. And we had gotten most of the way there on a product, and then Uniswap V3 came out, and we sort of pivoted. In Uniswap V2, there's this concept of impermanent loss. When you provide assets to a pool, and people are trading on top of that pool. This is getting super technical real quickly, so sorry for folks out there.
That's so good.
We do have to dive into a little bit of the specifics of how market makers work here. In Uniswap V2, if you're providing assets to a pool and people can trade across those assets in any number of price ranges, basically what happens is your pool share ends up representing more of whichever asset is performing worse. And that there's a phenomenon called impermanent loss there. Kind of difficult to understand for the average person, A. And B, also requires that you monitor your liquidity position and be able to remove it in the case where prices move too much. So that was the first product we were building, just to remove this foot gun from liquidity provision. Uniswap V3, what it does is instead of providing liquidity over the entire range of prices, you only provide liquidity over a certain range of prices. And as you can imagine, if the price swings more, you might end up with all of your assets being in whichever asset is performing worse very, very quickly. So all of the things that we saw with Uniswap V2 that were problematic for liquidity providers, Uniswap V3 doubles down on. But what Uniswap V3 does is it provides much better prices for the exchange and a much nicer user experience on that side of it. So there's benefits to it, but there's not benefits for liquidity providers. So we're trying to solve that problem with Unisoft V3 and Sommelier.
And so what it sounds like is that these protocols, let's say like Uniswap, are getting more complicated as time goes on. And so Uniswap V2 started with a more simpler model for these market makers, like you mentioned. And Uniswap V3 gets a bit more complex. And so, you mentioned Uniswap as, a good use case for what Sommelier does. Is this the main use case that Sommelier will work on is for helping liquidity providers with efficiency, or will there be other use cases that Sommelier will be also used for?
Yeah, I think that so. I think that this is probably a good point for me to talk about like what the basic tech we're building right now is, and sort of like how that fits into the ecosystem. We're one of the teams that's most active in building the Gravity Bridge from Cosmos to Ethereum. We're undergoing a series of testnets right now. We're working with your team on one as we speak. I should be doing that. But and we're going to be launching a mainnet here very soon, and that mainnet is going to have the ability to move assets back and forth from Cosmos and Ethereum. So Cosmos assets on Ethereum, Ethereum assets on Cosmos. That bridge also has the capability to do cross-chain contract calls. So from, let's say, the Cosmos side, you can call a contract over on Ethereum. And one of the major issues with Ethereum DeFi right now is if you want to create a DeFi protocol over on Ethereum, the contract that controls all those funds for your DeFi protocol is going to be controlled by a multi-sig right now. And, there's a lot of issues with multi-sig governance. You can, with a Gnosis safe, you can update membership and all these kinds of things, but there's not really truly dynamic membership. There's not really a lot of transparency around which addresses have control over that multi-sig. And, it's pretty easy for developers to run away with the funds at the end of the day. And we see this phenomenon of rugging throughout the Ethereum community. And this is fairly common. And, anyone that's getting into DeFi right now, you basically have to tell them, hey, watch your pockets, might be bad. And that's really not a great experience. So one of the benefits that this Gravity Bridge brings is that the DeFi contracts that the Gravity Bridge is going to manage are actually managed by the Cosmos validator set. That's a transparent, open membership validator set that is really actually truly owns the keys to the Ethereum contract. And I think that's one of the big benefits that Sommelier brings over traditional DeFi protocols. And then on top of that, those validators then have the ability to send transactions and take automated action on the Ethereum blockchain. So when we're talking about moving liquidity around between different pools and different price ranges, those are just automated actions on the Ethereum blockchain to make this activity of providing liquidity a lot easier. And with that sort of frame in mind, i.e. making liquidity provision this really democratic, easy to do thing where the yields are transparent, that's what we're trying to do. So that tech can be used for all kinds of different things, wrapping complex investment products that require programmatic action to manage in really simple interfaces where users put in money, get an ERC20 token that has a standard yield on it. So, banks call this structured products, and that's basically what we're building in Sommelier.
And so, you touched upon many, many things there. One of the things I really like that you mentioned is this sort of multi-sig thing that you have on Ethereum, and what you have with Cosmos with these sovereign chains, introducing this validator set, and of course, very relevant to Chorus One is this, even staking in general, and having economic incentives to make sure that you're actually behaving well, where you don't get that necessarily in the Ethereum ecosystem with these multi-sig contracts, which I think is a benefit in itself. And I think another thing that you touched on is the interoperability. What you're working on with Gravity Bridge, the Ethereum and Cosmos cross-chain calls, let's say. I think I'm not sure if this is the first time it's been done on Cosmos. You might be able to expand further. What really excites you about the fact that you're able to do this on Cosmos, and what are the benefits? Like, me as a user, why would I come to Sommelier as opposed to just doing it directly on Ethereum, for example?
Yeah, for sure. So there are other products out there that are doing this sort of liquidity management within Uniswap pools. They're, someone with the key is sending these rebalances, is managing this funds, and you're trusting a single counterparty. What we're building is an automated system that's fully auditable, where all of the individual parties not only contribute to the security of the system, they contribute to this sort of DeFi protocol side of it. And that system is controlled by a token that's ownable by users. This is like, you really hit the nail on the head when you're saying that Ethereum has these benefits and Cosmos has these other benefits. And there's really cool things about both of them. And what we're trying to do is really bring the best of both worlds. Smart contracting, this money Legos, DeFi world that Ethereum has created and is continuing to grow, and Cosmos is just beginning to come into, is really the future of digital finance. It's what we're all here for. We all came into the space likely because of Bitcoin at one point. We found Bitcoin to be too restrictive, and then we all said, wow, what else is there out there? And now, especially, I think when I got in back in 2016, 2017 was when I really started becoming very involved. There weren't a lot of these projects, and this idea of decentralized finance was kind of a dream. And now in this cycle, we're seeing real products. So now, how do we govern those real products, and how do we assure that those real products produce something that's investable to the average user in a really transparent way? And I think in a lot of ways, Sommelier is an effort to do that. We're creating this kind of DAO that controls a multi-sig over on Ethereum that votes on the allocation of liquidity throughout these pools and produces returns for users and takes a fee as a result.
No, for sure. I think it's really cool the fact that you're sort of bringing Cosmos DeFi into Ethereum DeFi, especially with the Cosmos DeFi ecosystem blossoming so much right now. So yeah, I might take it back again to your more sort of first use case, as we mentioned earlier, with Uniswap V3. And so I'm interested, if I guess obviously you have the bridge like you mentioned before. So could you use Sommelier for other protocols outside of Uniswap V3 in the future, or are you always going to have a core focus on this liquidity provision thing? How could you see that playing out?
Yeah, I think so. It's the team is like me, Zaki Munyan, who's a early Cosmos investor and sort of one of the leading lights of the Cosmos space. Like, I've been working with Zaki for a while, and then we've also got Tariq on the team. Zaki always talks about software as being this very iterative process of shipping to users, getting feedback, and bringing that feedback back into your products. And that's one area where we really fundamentally align. Like, this is the way that Silicon Valley found to build software in the mid 2000s, and it really works. It's extremely painful. It's uncomfortable. You have to expose yourself to criticism at a time when you probably don't want to, and you have to take feedback from users when it feels like it might not matter. And we really do believe in those things. And I don't want to say this is what we're going to do next. What we're going to do is we're going to ship this product, we're going to grow its usage, and then we're going to see what the next step is based on feedback from the users. Now, this technology that we have, you could use it for all kinds of things. And when I'm talking about structured products, structured products is this entire segment of banking where they're like, this weird new risky asset, let's wrap it in a different wrapper and sell it to an entirely new group of people. And that's a really general business line to be in. There's not there's no really end to the amount of products that you can come up with, because finance and structured finance in particular are always creating these new products. So today we're really focused on liquidity providers. I think that, and just to step back a little bit, I'm talking about a product that's not live. The products that we have live right now are currently the easiest way to add liquidity to Uniswap V3. We provide you price ranges based on historical price data and some machine learning for somewhere safe to put your liquidity for a period of a couple of weeks, and to maximize returns as well. And it's a lot less form fields than the Uniswap front end, and it also helps the users understand what they're doing much better. So like that's what we do now, and we're in this market of people providing liquidity, gathering feedback. And also that front end that we're building is going to end up becoming the front end for this blockchain that we're building on the back end. So like we're working in a number of directions simultaneously, and we're going to bring together all of those learnings with this full system. And, yeah, so as to where we're going next, not quite sure. But it's going to depend on the adoption, success, and the community that we build with the launch of this product.
No, for sure. And I think one of the things that for me personally, Cosmos really emphasizes, and one of the main things that they do over maybe some other networks, for example, could be this real focus on products. So, for example, we had the guys from Osmosis on in a podcast recently,
Oh,
and
great.
how they were focused.
Did you have Sunny and Josh? And
Yeah,
Dev?
Sunny and Josh. Yeah. No, not Dev. So just Sunny and Josh. And yeah, we were talking about.
We need to get Dev on a podcast. Have you ever talked to Dev?
I've never spoken to Dev.
Dev's brilliant. But yeah, Sunny and Josh and Dev, great team there. Love the Osmosis folks.
No, I think yeah, I mean, totally, they were awesome to talk to. And a similar theme that I'm getting talking to you, that like as well as talking with them as well, was this sort of theme of user experience and product and iterating and trying to, and also community as well. I think these things all mixed together, like you mentioned, are really sort of unique to Cosmos in this sense. And so I think what might be interesting is on Sommelier, like how have you focused on this real user experience side, and how does Sommelier really emphasize the user experience of liquidity provision?
Yeah, I think so. Uniswap V3 was designed with one user in mind, and that's somebody making a swap on the Uniswap front end with a large dollar amount, and trying to provide that user with as low slippage as possible. And that's the user experience they're going for. You go to the Uniswap front end, there's token A, token B, put it in here, get it out there. That is a really crisp, clean user experience that is wonderful. And Uniswap is laser focused on that user experience, which is great. Where they're not focused is the user experience on the back end of the people providing liquidity. And they have made that as complex as they can to make this other user experience as easy as possible. So the work that we're doing is basically going in there and saying, okay, what API does this expose? Where are the places where users have to fill in data now? How can we help them with existing contextual data from markets, from other things, like i.e. what's in their wallet and all of these other things, and help them quickly and easily go from where they are now to where they want to go. And if where they are now is in some random ERC20 tokens, and where they want to go is some other random ERC20 tokens in a pool, we want to be able to provide that as a one-click user experience. And, trade them into their new position, put that new position into the liquidity position at the correct ranges with as little user input as possible. So that's what we've been working on at Sommelier Finance right now. And, that's a lot of what I did with when I worked on the various interfaces of Cosmos, was trying to say like, okay, like how can we provide either all of the data users need to do what they need to do, or make the inputs as small as possible so that the user experience is easy and comprehensible. And that's the same kind of expertise that we're bringing to this field.
No, really, really cool. And I think you mentioned a few times there a lot to do with data, and I know personally that you do have some data science members in your team, if I'm not mistaken.
We do, yeah, absolutely.
So I think what might be cool to have a chat about is what these data scientists are doing in your team, and is there roles even for validators like Chorus One, for example, or even just normal users? How could data science be used in Sommelier?
This is a great question. So when we think about Uniswap V3, you say, I'm going to provide liquidity. Let's use, for example, the USDC ETH pair, which is one of the highest volume pairs on Uniswap V3. You say, I'm going to provide liquidity between like $1,800 Ethereum and $2,100 Ethereum. what you're doing there is you're basically making a prediction as to where prices are going to go. So what is one thing that has been proven to be fairly effective, at least in the short term, of predicting where prices are going to go? Data science. And, the number of inputs to the model you have, the number of different variables you have coming in, obviously give different levels of success. And I think there's a lot of room to try different models. But what we're trying to do here at Sommelier is build up really nice data infrastructure to provide as much data as possible to make those decisions, and then a standard interface on the other side for what the decision needs to look like, i.e., here's the data format that you need to predict your prices in. And right now we're building one of these black boxes to predict these prices over the next X time period. And, what we're hoping is that validators, correspond. You guys run a ton of data infrastructure, a lot of the same data infrastructure we run: Ethereum full nodes, graph nodes, various subgraphs, Cosmos archive nodes. And, pull in data from all of these various sources, put it through some sort of algorithm to make a decision, and then have each of the validators do the same thing. And then together, with the wisdom of a bunch of people trying to tackle this same problem, that's the way we're going to allocate the capital. And this goes back to that idea of kind of DAOs and sort of like, how can we use DAOs to like make traditional banking better?
For sure. I mean, it's almost like democratizing the decision to provide liquidity almost. I can see that. And I think, really, really cool and really interesting in general, the role of these node operators or whoever it might be, even non-node operators, moving into this sort of data sciencey thing. We've like sort of seeing now with more emphasis on collecting all the data that's coming from chains and trying to make decisions with all of them. And so I was wondering, you just mentioned the graph then as well, and similar to us, we also run a node on the graph. So are you are you doing work with the graph? Like, how are you using the graph with Sommelier?
For sure. So the price data that we're ingesting initially is Uniswap price data, both V2 and V3. We've been running a Uniswap V2 subgraph for quite a while. I don't know if you guys do that, but it is, quite a lot of data. We also built the Uniswap V3 subgraph. We contributed that upstream to the Uniswap team. We also have our own set of Ethereum smart contracts that we have graph stuff for. In order to provide really good market data, you need higher resolution than what some of these defaults provide. So we've done quite a bit of engineering work, both understanding, deploying, and managing the graph as the sort of like core backbone of our data infrastructure, especially on the Ethereum side of things. So that's kind of our experience with it.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, for sure. I mean, very relevant, all this data coming through with Sommelier, and I think real huge synergies there, to be honest. And so when I was playing around a little bit, and also from seeing Sommelier in general, and also from chatting with you previously, I think you mentioned that with Sommelier you have this thing that's called sellers, which is sort of like almost like a vault equivalent in some other DeFi protocols.
Yeah.
So maybe what is a seller in Sommelier, and how is that unique, or what could a user do with these sellers in Sommelier?
Yeah, well, a cellar is normally dug into a hill, and one of the benefits of that is that it keeps the temperature really nice so that the wine stays good. Well, oh, sorry, wrong cellar. But yeah, they are a lot like vaults, in a way where we see in DeFi kind of traditionally vaults. They've got some sort of yield-bearing asset, and then they wrap that yield-bearing asset and provide a more simple interface for it. The yield-bearing asset in question for us is Uniswap V3 liquidity positions. And right now, those liquidity positions are non-fungible, which means they're each different in kind of a unique way, which makes them hard to wrap. And we're going to wrap those liquidity positions in a ERC20 token so that it can be used as a money Lego in some of these other traditional DeFi protocols. But what that basically means is we need to rebalance that liquidity that lives in that seller throughout Uniswap V3. And that's where the cross-chain contract call comes in. the validators over on Cosmos are voting on where they think prices are going. If they see a deviation in where they expect prices to go with where prices are, with where we have the assets currently allocated, they will send across the bridge a rebalance call over to the seller contract, which will then move the liquidity up or down to a new liquidity range.
Nice. I mean, I think yeah, that's really cool. I mean, one of the things with these, sellers, and also like you mentioned, these yields, and I think earlier in the podcast you mentioned it, and I would like to ask about it now because I think it's really cool and it could be a big thing for Sommelier. Are these sort of structured products and yield bearing instruments almost?
Yeah.
So yeah, what sort of structured products do you think might eventuate on Sommelier? Anything sort of that you haven't seen before, or do you think we'll see more similar things that have been done already?
I think if we look throughout the broader interchain where we can find those yields, one huge source of them is staking. Zucky and in our team, we've really been very involved in the sort of staking derivatives conversation. I remember conversations with folks from Chorus years ago about staking derivatives. So, providing an interface in front of staking derivatives, because staking derivatives have a lot of these same issues of fungibility. Staking derivatives for an individual validator may be fungible, but you might need some sort of secondary system to wrap a number of validators, or spread delegations across a number of validators. That's definitely one area. I think that there's liquidity provision within Cosmos. We're starting to see some of those crazy ETH DeFi yields over on Osmosis now. And I think, the Gravity DEX is coming. We've got Sif Chain. We've got, Name X DeFi protocol that's coming down. Kava's shipping a DEX, and they've already got lending and stuff. So there's a number of places that we can do that. And with IBC, obviously those kind of cross-chain contract calls within the Cosmos ecosystem become much easier. We don't have to build that bridge. It's already done. So, after this, and then the Gravity bridge itself connects to any EVM-based chain. The interface that it has is the multi-sig that controls the account. So with that in mind, Uniswap V3 exists on Optimism. Being able to do this on Optimism, the rebalance calls are going to be drastically cheaper there. So that means we can do them more frequently, provide liquidity in tighter ranges. And the read, evaluate, print loop there is much, much quicker. So, there's a number of areas we can expand. And there's a number of different products we can build. And, I think that, hey, not just me, but, so, and there's a number of different products we can build there. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, definitely.
I'm kind of dodging you on this. I feel like you want to be like, we're going to do these three things after we ship V3.
Just,
yeah.
No, I mean, for me, this is just sort of thinking out loud. Yeah, I think it's cool. I think Sommelier acting as this almost front end interface across multiple chains on Cosmos and Ethereum. The way that you could play with yields almost in different LP positions or different chains, etc. And like you said, it's just wrapping one asset with another first, and obviously like what you want from that is some expected return. But as what's really cool with Sommelier is this data science team that you've got, and so it's very cool to think about what you'll be doing in the future with these things basically. And so you have a focus on Ethereum now and EVM compatibility. Could you see Sommelier being used across not just Cosmos and Ethereum, but other chains as well, such as Solana, or do you think you'll always be focused on Ethereum and Cosmos?
Solana definitely just shipped an EVM. I also know that you guys are working on the wormhole between Solana and Terra, I believe. Terra will be on IBC. So, Cosmos has always had this vision that there's going to be an interchain. It's not going to be one chain to rule them all. There's going to be big chains. They're going to talk to each other. And there's also going to be small chains that are going to talk to the big chains too. And this is fundamentally the way that we've been building and thinking for a long time. And the world is kind of coming to us now, which is cool. That's fun. But it also comes with risks. So yeah, we do view the broader blockchain space as all fair game, and I do. A lot of people think about these things competitively, and that it's this red ocean, and that Bitcoin, if Ethereum wins, Bitcoin loses, and vice versa. And we just don't view it that way. It's a positive sum game here in this space. We're growing the amount of users in this space as a whole, and we see innovation happening in valuable ways all across the blockchain space, and we're going to look to partner with folks in that area.
No, for sure. I could definitely not have said that any better myself, and really cool that, I mean, you're so open to, collaborating with, I mean, that, to be honest, one of the things that I love about the Cosmos, values and morals is that they really do like collaborating rather than competing. And I think that's what holds it in such good stead, in the future. And so maybe we could talk.
Zucky, I do want to give a little bit of credit to Zucky on this. Zucky, this is a Zucky thing that I think that we have all sort of internalized in a way, and this extra inclusive sort of vibe that Cosmos has is something that I also really, really value. I think it's important.
No, definitely. I mean, some of the smartest minds, I think, on Cosmos, and the governance. You can see that in the governance forums already, and then the community as well. You already see is really cool, and that's why I think me personally as a Cosmos and an Ethereum user, something like Sommelier is just, I can't wait to use it, to be honest, because I think it'll just be so exciting and awesome to be using it across both Ethereum and Cosmos. So maybe just to finish, we could just quickly talk about so where are you at right now with Sommelier? So it's not live just yet. Do you have plans to go live with it soon? When can we sort of expect this?
Yeah, for sure. So where we are right now is we're doing test nets for the Cosmos chain, and that's going really well. Well, we got one more bug to push through this morning, but that's what test nets are for. That's going really well. We're really happy with where the bridge software is right now. It's that's been a fairly lengthy development process, and we've done quite a bit of testing on that. Built entire integration testing frameworks for these sort of like complex cross-chain things. And that test net's going to be live this week. We'll probably go to mainnet after a week of stability in that test net. So we're anticipating mainnet within the next 2 weeks. That mainnet will just be the bridge and the ability to send tokens back and forth between Cosmos and Ethereum with a very small validator set, as we look to make sure that the bridge is stable and that we can quickly upgrade that. In parallel, we've been developing this sort of Ethereum infrastructure, which is the seller contracts. We're going to be running, and I believe that we just put up, we put it up either today or tomorrow, but we put up a single signer version of those sellers where we're going to be running the rebalance function manually, like some of these other companies out there doing this. To make sure that it works. We also want to get some eyes on it in terms of making sure that the contracts aren't going to be exploited trivially, and a number of other things like that. And we're going to run those kind of in parallel for a few weeks and then integrate them hopefully soon.
Very cool. All sounds absolutely awesome, to be honest, and very exciting, and very nice to know that it's coming out so soon. And I mean, me as well as many others, I'm sure, can't wait to use this. And so we might wrap it up there, Jack, if you don't mind. I might maybe just a few final words. Where can people find you, yourself, and Sommelier if they want to get involved and learn more about your network?
Totally. I'm Jack.Zampolin on Twitter. No, I'm not Jack.Zampolin on Twitter. I'm Jack_Zampolin on Twitter. Check me out there. That's probably where I am most. I'm at Jack Zampolin pretty much everywhere else on the internet. So also hit me up. Please go to Sommelier.finance to check out what we're working on. We've got some nice explainers about what we've built now. And if you go to app.sommelier.finance, you can use the easiest way to add liquidity to Unisoft V3. We're always hiring for developers. If you write Go or Rust or Solidity or hopefully some combination of those three, ideally all three, please come talk to us. We'd love to talk to you. That's us.
Great. No, well, thanks so much, Jack, and really appreciate your time, and hope to see you again on the show one day soon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anytime you guys want to do it, I'm down. And thank you very much, Xavier, for having me. And I really appreciate your flexibility today again.